Hey, Bob. I got the news this afternoon that Bill Bousman had relocated the Eastern Phoebe. So since that area is only about 10 minutes away, I took a dash out there and got a really awful cell phone picture of it.
So bad.
And of course, Garrett and Nickerson were already there, so it didn't have to work very hard to find the bird. But we haven't had an Eastern Phoebe for a while. This is probably the same one that was reported about a month ago, I guess. But the last Eastern Phoebe I remember was the one that showed up at Lake Cunningham, and there was a lesser blackback gull there at the same time.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
since there's a lesser blackbacked in Alviso right now, it seems like those two arrived together. They carpooled here.
I think so. I think the Eastern Phoebe came back just for your flycatcher class, Matthew.
I know. And right, how could I not go to see it since I have got to talk about flycatchers again on Monday?
I have only seen one species of flycatcher since your class on Monday.
Well, I know somebody in this group saw the vermilion flycatcher. I saw it as an avatar there. Hey, Danny. Hey, Laura. So anyway, well, why don't we get started? We have 40 people here, and maybe some folks will dribble in after this, but I wanted to welcome everybody to this year's Birdathon Kickoff. And obviously this is a little bit different than previous years, and you all understand why, but we're managing
way better than last.
Pardon, Barry?
Way better than last year's.
Possibly. So we all understand why we're doing this, and hopefully we won't have to do this next year, but in some ways it's actually kind of nice. We can have our dinner while we're here and drink a little wine or have some green beer. So it's a nice occasion, and I'm really glad you're all here. So tonight we're going to have Carolyn, Barry, and myself talk a little bit to you about the Birdathon and what's happening differently this year and the exciting opportunities that are out there. So I guess I'll just jump right into it. So I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna talk later because I have a kind of a little quiz in mind toward the end. So definitely hang out toward the end and test your skills with some bird song recognition. But in the meantime, I want to welcome Carolyn Knight, who is, of course, our outreach and education specialist, or education and outreach specialist. She does both things exceedingly well, and she's going to take the microphone now and tell us a little bit about why the Birdathon exists and what it's for. So take it away.
Thanks, Matthew, and thank you everybody who is out here tonight. It's lovely to see everybody's faces, or at least your guys' names on the screen. Tonight I get to talk to you guys about what Birdathon is and the why of it. Why do we do this every spring? And what it actually is if you've never taken part in Birdathon before, which some of you haven't, and actually I'm really excited to see you guys. So on paper, Birdathon is about a lot of numbers, and I can talk to you guys about the number of species every Birdathon team sees. I could tell you guys about how much money is raised, and those are some numbers in front of you, but numbers aren't super exciting. So I want to talk more about why we actually do Birdathon. So Birdathon is the primary fundraiser for Santa Clara Valley Audubon's education programs. It's how we get to lead field trips for classes out into the Baylands with the Wetlands Discovery Program, maybe showing students the birds that they can actually find on their school campus, letting them use binoculars for the first time. It helps us do programs for Title I schools on scholarships so that they don't have to worry about funding and they can still get their students access to environmental education. It allows us to build nest boxes, introducing students to birds and power tools at the same time in a way that's a lot of fun and is actually pretty constructive. It lets us do owl pellet dissections, which I've got to be honest, is probably my favorite program that we get to do. The last in-person program I got to do before the world went a little crazy was owl pellet dissections with a group of first graders. And as you can imagine, there's a really wide spectrum of reactions with that age group when you tell them that they're going to be dissecting owl pellets. Some of them are super into it. It's the most exciting thing they've ever done. Others are a little bit leery of the process. So while I was explaining to one poor young boy who was having a little bit of a difficult time with it, that, you know, bones weren't scary. Everybody has bones, and they were actually pretty cool. The little girl next to us was pulling out teeth out of her pellet at a rate that was probably a little bit alarming if I hadn't been the exact same child at that age. But by the end of the day, everybody was really excited about their pellets, what they had found, what they had been able to identify. They spent the entire time asking questions about the owls and the animals that it was eating. And they went home having had a really great time with it. They had gotten to get their hands dirty. Some of them went home with bags of bones that their parents were probably a little dismayed that they came home with. But we all had a really good time with it. And it's things like Birdathon that allows these programs to happen, that lets us give these experiences to students. So in the meantime, as the world's gone crazy, you've probably seen some of our videos talking about birds, talking about birding. We've done some virtual walks. We even went totally virtual with our Wildlife and Harvest Day Festival, which if you've been out to Blackberry Farms in October, maybe you've gotten to experience. It's where we get together with a bunch of environmental education groups, and we basically just share what we've been up to. We share with the community what it is we do and how they're able to get involved. And we actually got a chance to see some really cool videos from those groups. Now, what we're looking forward to is not just a future where we're able to get back into the classroom, where we're able to lead field trips again, but we've got some new areas that we're exploring where we get to see some different birds other than the ones that we see at the wetlands and the Palo Alto Baylands. We get to explore a new habitat. And some of you have probably actually already heard about this. The Oak Savannah Citizen Science Project. I'm still working on getting that to roll off my tongue easily. But it's a beautiful area in North Coyote Valley. It's been recently acquired back in the very end of 2019. And we're really excited to be able to explore it, not just as a new habitat and a new program, but with a new age, introducing high school students to environmental science in a way that's not very common in the school systems at this point. Actually being able to get them out into the field and experiencing these things for themselves. Now, Birdathon itself, how are you going to get involved? This is the Birdathon Teams page. It's probably going to become pretty familiar. We've done a lot of work to make this accessible and easy to navigate. You can scroll through all of the teams that are present. Each team has a description. Most of them have pictures, so you can either see the team doing the birding thing if it's been, in existence for a couple of years, which many of them have been. But you can get information on who the team leader is, when that team is actually going to be going out, what sort of level of birding to expect from that. So if you're feeling just like some casual birding, maybe look at the beginners or a variable team. But if you're looking for a really high intensity, 24-hour big day, go for the advanced birding teams and bring snacks, I guess. And we've got two options with these teams. You can, of course, request to join a team. Simply put in your name, your email address, and whatever message you want to share with that team leader, hit submit, and that team leader is going to be sent a message with your interest and they can get back to you. Or if you're going to be supporting in financial terms, you can donate. And each team has a fundraising page where you can find who's taking part in that team. So if you just have one friend on that team that you want to support, or maybe there's no one in particular on that team that you're looking to donate to, maybe you just liked their name. We've got a couple of teams that have some really, I enjoy puns. I really enjoy it when the teams have puns in their names. So if you're making a team, you can put a pun in it and it wins you points with me that are not worth anything but my appreciation. But you never know, that may be something that someone who's looking to support Birdathon, that attracts their eye and they donate to your team. And as I mentioned, you can make your own team. So if you just want to go out with a group of friends, or maybe you want to do a distributed team where everyone in your friend group birds at the same time but separately, you can form your own team, which will create a fundraising page so that you can compete in Birdathon, because it is, at the end of the day, a competition, even if it is a friendly one. So these are our awesome sponsors for this year's Birdathon. We have virtual classes from Alvaro Jaramillo, scholarships to classes from the Cornell Lab, as well as Santa Clara Valley Audubon Society. We are awarding prizes from the Los Gatos Birdwatcher, who's been very generous in donating over the years. Beauregard Winery, if wine is to your hankering. Zeiss is donating a pair of binoculars. We've got the board game for the biggest bird nerds, Wingspan, which is super cool, actually. And if you're feeling like a little bit of in-person birding and you're fully vaccinated, we can do a guided trip to the California Academy of Sciences. Drive to San Francisco and bird the rainforest. So we're really excited about our prizes, especially because this year, Cornell is super generous, and everyone who is a contributing participant to Birdathon is actually going to get access to Cornell's size and shape identification class. So that's a really cool opportunity to maybe up your birding game or solidify the basics for you just by participating in Birdathon. Now, the other part of Birdathon is, of course, nothing to do with the competition and all about the actual experience. So that's kind of a challenge with the circumstances that we're under right now. So to ameliorate that, we have our Birdathon stories. You can actually read up on all of last year's stories. These are basically team reports. Participants share their pictures, they share their eBird lists, they share their adventures or misadventures of their day, so that we can get a feel of going out and birding together, even if the only direct communication we had was maybe a group chat with our Birdathon team. So Peter and Diane Hart took part in the Wrong Turns. This is a favorite team of mine. It's one that I always take part in. It's the education and wetlands discovery program team. It's open to the public. If you're interested in environmental education, please feel free to join us because we have a great time. And it's aptly named. Whenever we go out birding together, we do get lost, which is a little concerning because most of us lead field trips with children, but we seem to have a sense of direction and ability to read signs when we're in the field with classes. It's just when we're birding together without students to mind that we get lost and turned around on trails and take wrong turns on roads. Last year we didn't bird together and none of us got lost. So that was a minor miracle in and of itself. But we can see teams that are a little bit more active. So the Green Herons went out and they biked and got a pretty impressive list together as well. Or you can see what the Bird Cassos have been creating. This is an art team. And so what they do is they actually draw, they paint the birds that they got to see. And they actually produced a really gorgeous ebook of all of their artwork. So we've got a really wide variety of teams. You can go out for the more casual birding. As I mentioned, you can go out for birding that's very intense, or maybe you can explore the artistic side of birding. And this year, you may be familiar, we have an Instagram account now. It's really awesome. You can find all sorts of really neat things on it. For Bird-A-Thon, we're encouraging people to tag their pictures if you're on Instagram so that we can share things more easily and keep a better eye on what's going on. I'm going to pass it back to Matthew, but thank you, everybody.
Carol, that was wonderful. Thank you. Do we happen to have the plaque? Were you going to be showing that, or will Barry show that a little bit later?
I have a slide with the plaque.
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, just to reiterate what Carolyn said, we have a huge variety of teams for all different styles, all different energy levels, all different talents, drawing, poetry. I think we ought to have something about recording songs as well. But we haven't gotten anybody to step up to that, but I think we probably should. Anyway,
not too late to form new teams.
I know. Let's make a new team that's charged with getting as many recordings as they can. I think that'd be wonderful. Anyway, thank you, Carolyn. That was fantastic, and I think you're really helping everybody understand what we're trying to earn money for. We're raising it for the education program, which is what it's always been about. And this year we're making sure that everybody's aware of that. So I want to hand it off to Barry now, the president of the board of directors, and my go-to guy for almost everything, including tech issues. So Barry's going to take it away now and talk about what he's going to talk about.
All right. Thank you, Matthew. As you said, I'm Barry Langdon-Lassagne. I'm the president of the board of directors and a volunteer and field trip leader, and also head of the Bird-A-Thon committee. Let's see if I can find my presentation. It would be ironic if I had a technical problem after you just told me I was your tech guy. Okay, let's try again. All right. Boom. So yeah, I'm me. And let me start off by talking about that crazy year that Carolyn was mentioning earlier. So COVID-19 is still a thing, as you know. This time last year, it was a really big, scary, unknown thing. So unknown that we canceled the Bird-A-Thon kickoff meeting entirely, because at the time it was planned as an in-person, indoor potluck. And slowly but surely, as things locked down, we realized we probably shouldn't do that. And then we sort of retreated, figured out what can we do, and we came up with various different ideas. And we had a successful Bird-A-Thon last year, despite all of the unknowns of COVID. COVID is much better known now. Many of you have been vaccinated. Congratulations to those that have. And the county moved from purple tier to red tier a few weeks ago. And you'll be able to tell on this map, it's a very teeny tiny map, but Monterey County has just moved to red tier. They were purple last time I checked. And San Mateo County is now in orange tier. So things are getting better. At least locally, they are getting better. So what we're doing this year, rather than come up with a list of rules for all of the unknowns, is we are mostly deferring to the county guidelines. We do ask that everybody wear masks when you're out there birding, that you practice social distancing, 6 feet or more between individuals, even on the same team if you're not the same household, and stay home if you're not feeling good. So those are all just common sense. If the county loosens up, this is great. If the county tightens down, please continue to go to the county website, pay attention to whatever the county guidelines are. We need to all abide by those. I want everybody to stay safe and stay well and have lots of fun out there birding. So things could change quickly, but so far they're changing in the right direction. Really relieved at that. All right, so as president of the board and head of the Bird-A-Thon committee, of course, you know, fundraising is a really huge part of the Bird-A-Thon, and it's really important. It's very important to me, but it's not actually the reason that I participate in the Bird-A-Thon. I love the Bird-A-Thon because it's fun. So rather than talking about fundraising, I wanted to talk a little bit about fundraising. And yeah, I'm the first person to ever use that pun. Anyway, there are lots of different types of teams. Carolyn just gave you some great examples of different types of teams. If you look on the web page that she pointed you to, the team page, you can sort of see what we've got. But we're absolutely open to new and different and exciting types of teams. Both cooperative and competitive are lots of fun. In fact, we're looking for more types of cooperative teams. I think the history of the Birdathon, we kind of focused on competitive, and we've been moving much more towards how can we do this together? How can this be community building? How can this be more fun? And so things like the Sketch-a-thon, and we had a writer's Birdathon last year. This year I was suggesting, hey, let's do a haiku-a-thon, which could be fun. Those tend to be much more cooperative. We're not competing against anybody. Maybe we're competing against ourselves or challenging ourselves, but we're mostly there to, be with each other and to have a good time. And as a side effect, raise money for Santa Clara Valley Audubon. We do have Photography Big Day, which is similar to a traditional big day. So traditional big day, the Birdathon Big Day is an offshoot of the Birding Big Day, which is a group goes out and sees how many birds they can see in 24 hours. And for those people that 24 hours is too much, there's also a 4-hour big day where you see how many you can see in 4 hours. We also have a Photography Big Day, which is how many pictures can you take in 24 hours? How many species can you get photos of? And I just wanted to say for photographers out there, and this is true for all birders, respect the bird. When you're taking pictures of the bird or when you're looking at the bird, we really want everybody to follow the ABA guidelines. The ABA has a list of birding ethics, basically. And it's really important that we respect the birds, we respect nature, we stay to the paths, stay on trails, don't use flash photography, don't use tapes to tape in the bird. These are all things that we discourage. We want you to have fun and we want the birds to be happy. Anyway, Photography Big Day, backyard birding is a wonderful thing. Eve organized some backyard birdathons last year, and those were really successful. We kind of didn't do a big sit last year because of the unknowns around COVID. This year, I think big sits can be successful, especially if the whole group is in kind of a large circle and facing outward. If you're facing outward from the circle, you're going to see more birds anyway. So I think big sits can be organized as well. Anyway, what else was I going to say? I think that was the main thing.
Haiku.
Unexpected haiku, yes. Oh, I can't back up because that slide has this like 30 seconds.
I'm excited about that one.
Okay, well, you and me will start the haiku-a-thon. We'll see what we can do. I think it'd be fun. For every bird you find, stop and write a haiku. Or maybe write the haikus at the end. Anyway, I wanted to briefly talk about the history of the Birdathon. I know history is boring, but I think it's exciting. And I was having fun digging through ancient avocets to figure out what year did we start this crazy adventure? And it turns out we started 33 years ago in 1988. And I believe it was a one-day thing where a bunch of teams all went out on the exact same day. So you can see it has evolved quite a bit over the years. The first team was the Vagrants, and they saw 148 species. And then starting in 2004, Bob Hurt came up with a great idea of producing plaques that we put on the wall at McClellan Ranch to honor the team that brought in the most money, the team that saw the most species, and the team that saw the rarest bird, or what we call the best bird. And you can see the Rock Wrens, which is Bob's team, won in 2004, and the Varied Twitchers won in 2004 as well. And in fact, you see the Varied Twitchers name kind of repeated over and over there. And even if you go on to now, yes, Bob continues to make plaques. We now have, I think, 1, 2, 3, 4 or 5 plaques on the wall at McClellan Ranch. You can see the Varied Twitchers are still in the lead for almost every year. And it occurred to me that, yeah, these plaques are beautiful and it's fun to look at the plaque and see your name or see your team's name or see friends' names up there. But we haven't been going to McClellan Ranch much lately in this last year. So I have finally created a web page for us. And this is just the top edge of the web page. So now you can see who was the winner for every single year going all the way back to the very first year. And there's some blanks up there at the top. So this year we can fill those in. All right, one more thing on the fundraising category. So big days are a thing, and they've been a thing in birding for quite a long time. And in fact, I think even if you go back to like 1925, the beginning of our chapter, there were big days going on back then. People were always interested in seeing how many birds they can see in one day. And as we introduced the idea of a distributed birdathon last year, it occurred to us as the Birdathon committee that what if we had like the ultimate distributed birdathon where we got everybody to just go out there and see as many birds as they can and all report back? Well, Cornell Labs, of course, thought of this too, and they decided to make it worldwide. So they have this thing called the Global Big Day, which they've been doing for several years now. And this year it's on May 8th. And you might notice that our Birdathon window has kind of been extended a little bit further into May than in previous years. And the reason we did that was so that we could include this Global Big Day as part of our official Birdathon. So basically, I want to tell you, everybody is on a team. You don't need to donate or anything. You can sponsor this team, but you don't need to pay or anything like that. All you need to do is go out and bird sometime on May 8th and turn in your eBird checklist and submit your checklist to eBird. John Hurley has kindly offered to take all of the data from the entire county that everybody submits and crunch it together into one checklist of all of the birds that we all see. So, and thank you, John. And John has also kindly said that if you don't want to use eBird, you could just send him a list of the birds that you saw. We would really prefer that everybody, excuse me, that everybody do put it into eBird if you can, because then that data goes into this global database, which is used by scientists worldwide to do things like track bird migration, look at bird habitats, increases and decreases in bird populations. Lots of excellent science is being produced by eBird. So it's really great if you can get those checklists into eBird. And my challenge to you and to me and to everybody in the county is, let's see if we can break a record here. So what record are we trying to break? Well, I mentioned the Very Twitchers before, and the Very Twitchers, their best year, so far as I could find, was 170 species, which is pretty impressive. Does anybody know how many species there are in the county? Matthew, you know how many species there are in the county?
It's 367.
367?
Well, we have over
year round.
We have over
Oh,
400 on the checklist, 408,
Yeah.
I think. But within that time period, it's probably closer to what Carolyn said.
Right, I think you're right. I think we have 409 species, I checked, and not all of them are here in the spring. So we're unlikely to get 409. So I'm going to set the bar a little bit lower. I think it should be higher than the Very Twitchers. And in fact, only one team in the history of the Birdathon has done better than 170. And that was Rob Furrow's team, which is not, sorry, I'm clicking on the wrong thing. Rob Furrow's Santa Clara Skimmers saw 181 species in one day inside the county, which is pretty impressive. Even more impressive is if you look at May 9th of last year, which was when eBird did their big day, the combined, sorry, something in my throat. John Hurley did some data mining for me, and he determined that 185 species were seen on May 9th. And that's not the best that we've ever done in the county. The best, at least the best last year, the biggest day was on April 26th, where there was a combined 202 species found. So that's almost half the species that we have in the county. So my challenge to us is, let's see if we can get to half this year. So what we need is 204.5 species. So that's what
sounds
that's
like a reasonable goal, Barry,
so.
especially if we get everybody involved and we distribute it.
That's the goal. So I'm trying to make a bigger deal of this. I want more people to get involved, and we'll, periodically remind people that the eBird Big Day is coming up, so that we can all get out there and see. I think it'll be really interesting from a science perspective as well as just from fun. What can we see on that day? All right. So that was it. And all of the information that we're telling you is available in one form or another on our website. And you can go to scvas.org/Birdathon, or really, actually, all you need to do is go to scvas.org. And from there, there's links to everything that we've been talking about. So thank you. And I will hand it back to Matthew.
Yeah, that's fantastic, Barry. Excellent, excellent stuff. I'd like to talk to you a little bit about the color scheme on the on the plaque.
What? What? Oh, you know what I was doing is I was trying to match Bob's plaque color.
It looks magnificent. I saw a suggestion come through about collapsing it by decade or something. I think that's a really good idea. I know it's going to be so nice to have it there, so not everybody has got to go to the ranch to see that data. I really love it. And I also want to reiterate your comment about getting everybody to use eBird. I think it'd be fantastic if we get more people to use eBird. And if you're not familiar with how to use eBird, of course, the Cornell website has tutorials. And then we even have a few tutorials on our YouTube channel that Carolyn and I put together. So if you feel like seeing a presentation by people you know, you might look at those as well. But eBird is definitely the way to go. And I really want to thank John Hurley for offering to do the data mining when the big day is over, because that's going to be really a lot of fun to be able to see how our whole county did and if we can meet the goal that you've set. So fantastic.
Hey, Matthew.
Yep.
I was thinking that Barry might have shown it, but if people are interested, I can share the data for most species seen for the Birdathon period going all the way back.
Ooh.
So it's interesting because actually April is the birdiest month. Like there were multiple days where people reported 198 species and 202 was the top in Santa Clara County. So it's pretty interesting to see that.
Yeah, that's great. Well, we should get that on the website for people to.
Yeah, we can post some of it. I'll talk to you afterwards, John.
And I also want to touch on something Carolyn said earlier about the new teams. The number of new people that we could potentially get involved with the Birdathon is fantastic. And I think the way we're doing it is by making these new kinds of teams available. You have to remember that the Birdathon is really not a scientific endeavor. It's a fundraising endeavor, and it's a fundraising endeavor, like Barry says. So any kinds of team that you want, any speed you want, and if you know folks that might be interested, help them understand why it's important, and we'd love to have them join in on the fun. So if there's no further comments or questions about that, you guys don't have anything else, Barry and Carolyn, to say?
I've said all of the things I wanted to say.
Okay, then I think what I'll do, if you don't mind, is I will.
Carolyn's smiling, so that's a good sign.
I will share my screen now. Let me see if I can do this. I'm going to click this. Yeah, there it happened to. Oh, there we go. Okay. So here's my little presentation. And I wanted to talk something about, I hope everybody can hear me okay. I wanted to talk a little bit about the distributed team. I think I'm going to be doing, a team every week of the Birdathon. Probably most of them will be on Wednesdays. A couple of them might be on Thursday because of scheduling issues, but I'd like to have people join my teams. They're all going to be distributed teams because I haven't gotten any vaccines yet. And I think I'm probably going to feel a lot more comfortable by doing a distributed team. But I wanted to tell you some of the challenges and opportunities that accompany a distributed team. And if you don't remember what a distributed team is, it's when the members of the team do not bird together. They sort of go their separate ways and report back to the team leader. And sometimes the team leader, hopefully the team leader, will kind of tell folks where to go so they can cover the area effectively. But So the opportunity, one of the biggest opportunities about the distributed team is there's more than one dawn chorus for a team. Normally, if you're in a conventional team, a traditional team, there's only one dawn chorus, and it's where the team leader takes you. And that can be wonderful and exciting. But think about a distributed team where you could have some folks experiencing the dawn chorus at Grant Park and some folks experiencing the dawn chorus at Sanborn. So you've got East Hills and West Hills, and maybe someone else is dawn chorus at Coyote Creek. So lots of ways to turn this distributed team born out of COVID into a really fun advantage. So your team can bird more locations that are farther away from each other and therefore diversify the habitats that you cover. So think of the time it takes to get from the East Hills to the West Hills or vice versa, and how you might have to abandon certain areas, certain kinds of habitats. Maybe you don't get to do as much chaparral as you wanted, or maybe you never get to the conifers. So by having a distributed team, you could assign your team members to different areas and diversify the habitats that your final count will include. And you can also attract a lot of new team members. Some team members might be reticent about joining a team that they don't know, or feeling uncertain about their abilities, but they live near a certain park that they really do love and they go to a lot. Maybe those folks can be new team members because they have special expertise about that particular area. So allowing the team leaders to assign these locations to participants with strong knowledge of specific areas is a real advantage. Let's say someone knows all the hidden trails in Sanborn Park. You wouldn't want to drag that person over to Grant Park when they can do really good work at Sanborn. But remember, there's an important thing about shorebirds. They are definitely affected by the tides. They feed when the mud is visible, when the tide is low, in other words, and they rest together when the tide is high. So kind of an important thing to ask yourself is, which shorebird scenario suits your team? And some of you might say, well, both. Actually, we can have some folks taking care of the low tide shorebird situation, and you could have some team members doing the high tide shorebird scenario. So that's another advantage. And I always feel that owling is better done early in the morning than late at night. And that's just my opinion. But if you bird early in the morning, you go owling early in the morning, let's say 3 or 3:30, something like that, very, very early, you're going to hear some owls. And then before you know it, you'll have the dawn chorus very shortly after the owls stop. Now, if you wait until sunset and the birds have stopped singing, you might have to wait several hours before you hear any owls. So it just seems to make, at least to me, a little bit better sense to do owling in the morning. Plus, I think it's easier to wake up early than it is to stay up late. The distributed team is entirely COVID safe, which of course we all know the importance of that. But the biggest thing you're going to have to worry about still is traffic and crowded lots. I don't know about you, but I've noticed that all the parks are way more crowded on the weekends than they used to be. And a lot of them are crowded during the week as well. So you can't escape that with a distributed team. In fact, in some way, you're contributing to it by having more cars. But it's just something that we all have to deal with. Most important thing by far is to have fun and to stay safe. So that's my closing message about the distributed team. And now I have a little presentation on bird songs for you. So this is kind of a mid-level bird song presentation. A lot of these songs will probably be familiar. I'm hoping that some of them are kind of new and it'll be a little challenging, but if you get them all right, then congratulations to you. That's going to be a challenge. But this portion is called Seeing with Our Ears, and I think you'll get it when you start thinking about this. So the bird songs I want to talk about are divided into 4 kind of main song categories. And there are other categories, like harsh, for example, is literally a category for most of the corvids. But the categories that I've chosen are trilled, whistled, warbled, and complex. And all the songs I'm going to talk to you about fall into one of these 4 categories. There are a bunch of birds that fall really neatly into each of these categories. Probably the most famous example for a trilled call would be dark-eyed junco, but you see several more there. And whistled, the American robin is sort of the prototypical whistled birdsong. And warbled, house finch, of course, is a really obvious and familiar example. And complex, I'd have to put Buicks Wren at the top of that because, in fact, that's the song that seems to cause most people confusion. So within each of these four categories, there are subdivisions, and you can qualify a trilled song by saying it's slow or fast. You can qualify a whistled song by saying that it's hurried, or that it's languid or slow or rough or smooth. Warbled songs can be continuous or intermittent. And complex songs could sound like a machine, or they could sound really musical. So there are lots of ways of refining a song by adding some of these other words. And there are many more words that you can add to a song description. But learning to describe a song first by what type it is, and then by adding a few of these qualifiers, goes a long way towards helping you learn a song and communicate to somebody else what you think you've heard. So let's talk first about trilled songs. So on the y-axis, we have pitch, meaning high notes and low notes. And on the horizontal axis, we've got time. So on the left, we've got 0 seconds, and on the right, we've got 2 or 3, 4 seconds. So a trilled song is really nothing more than repeated notes. In other words, it's too quick to hum along to. It's a fast, usually kind of level repetition. But if you've ever played a musical instrument or read music or sung in a choir, you know that a trill actually has a very specific musical definition, and it's rapidly alternating notes. And but nevertheless, with birds, trills are also describing single repeated notes. But this is probably more accurate if you have a musical background. The perfect example of a trilled song, and the simplest one, probably one of the earliest ones that people learn, is the dark-eyed junco. And I hope that you'll be able to hear this when I hit the space bar. I'm going to have to change this picture because it's bugging me, because that's the East Coast slate colored. There we go. That's the West Coast Oregon junco.
Sound is coming through well. I can hear it.
Good, good. So you can hear that that song is really just repeated notes. Now, if you take those repeated notes and you squish them together so that there's absolutely no space in between them, it turns into something closer to a buzz. And the famous example of this would be chipping sparrow. So listen to the difference between this and what you just heard. So it sounded a lot faster, a little bit more mechanical, and it didn't really have the nice ringing quality to it that the Oregon dark-eyed junco had. So here's another trilled song, and one that sort of slows down at the end. And I've indicated that with these drawings by having those notes kind of spaced farther apart. This is kind of a stylized sonogram, in case you're wondering how I created these. A great example of a slowing song would be the orange crown warbler, which a lot of people believe sounds like it's running out of breath or running out of gas, as I think Roger Tory Peterson said. I have a couple examples of this song, and this one has a gentle rise and fall, which I'm hoping you'll be able to detect. It goes up a little bit and then it comes back down. That's typical for orange crown warbler. I think there's one more example. So what you're getting, unfortunately, is also the sounds of the rest of the forest. You can't really isolate one bird song over another. And in almost all these recordings, you'll hear other birds in the background. And if you recognize the ones that I'm talking about at that moment, see if you can identify the ones in the background. So here's another kind of trilled call. This one I just call staccato, which is another musical term. It's really percussive, and there's a lot of space in between these notes. This famous one would be Wilson's Warbler. So it's insistent and very staccato. And I think you'll hear that it has kind of a quality. It sounded like it accelerated a little bit at the end there. Let's hear it again. Those notes just seem to get a little closer together. And again, a little rise and fall to this one. So the next major category is whistled. And these notes are longer, they're a little bit lower tone. It's almost possible to imitate these with a human whistle. And if you look at these three phrases, they're not exactly the same. There's a little bit of variation, but they have a similar sort of picture to them. And short phrases with extra space in between, unlike the trill. Most obvious example is the American robin with a sort of tweedledee, tweedledum sort of song. So if you're a good whistler, you might be able to imitate that with your own whistle. So I like to think about the Western tanagers as being a lot like a robin, but having a sore throat, because the notes are not nearly as smooth and fluty. They're more rough, a little burry, like it's got a sore throat, like it's got a hoarse voice. Now, I'm pretty sure that recording was made in the Sierra somewhere, because I could hear common nighthawk and mountain quail in the background. And this next one, I think I can hear Pacific wren too, just to give you an example of how often other birds can be heard in the backgrounds. They make an extra fun challenge for you. If you get past the main bird in a recording easily, work on the ones in the background, and you have a tougher challenge here. But listen to this. Here's the Pacific wren singing along with the Western tanager. I hope you heard that. That's one of my favorite songs, the Pacific wren. So the black-headed grosbeak just loves to sing. It's amazing, but it's kind of a random song. We'll hear it. So it kind of makes me think that it loves to sing, but it just can't remember the tune very well. So it sort of whistles randomly like that that coworker at the office who whistles just no particular song all day. Yeah, it took him a little while to get started there, but once he got started, he really could barely stop. So the oak titmouse has got a really simple whistled song, and it's really insistent, and it's highly variable. Let's give it a listen. To me, it's always kind of sounded like, "What do you want? What do you want?" It repeats phrases once or twice after the first phrase. But notice how it's very different this time. It's still really rhythmic. It's rhythmic, but it's quite different than the earlier version. So Buicks Oriole is a fabulous arrival in spring, brilliant day glow orange. And to me, it's always sounded like it's saying, quick, quick, look up here, up here. And it's a whistled song also. Let's see what it sounds like to you. Well, it may not work for everybody, but it works for me. And sorry, Barry?
It did sound like up here a couple times.
Yeah, I thought so. So Cassin's vireo is used to be called solitary vireo until it was divided into 3 species. We get Cassin's vireo really commonly here. Less commonly, we've got plumbeus, and even less commonly blue-headed. But they all sound really similar, and they all sound like they're talking to themselves. Give this a listen. Kind of sounds like it's asking, what do we want? I don't know. Where should we go? Oh, don't know. So he asks questions and then answers them quickly, all by himself. So I find that really amusing. I love the Cassin's vireo. But now we're going to move on to warbled songs. Now these are, they can be whistled songs, but there's not a lot of pitch variation, and the phrases are really smashed together. So kind of like the trilled, in that there's not much space in between, but look how these notes are distinct and different, and each phrase is slightly different. So there's a lot of breath control involved here and very few gaps between the phrases. I see 4 phrases here in this drawing, but not a lot of space in between. House finch is probably the easiest example. It's very choppy, but it's actually a very pretty song. I'm sure everybody knows the house finch, but fewer people might know the purple finch. So this sounds a little bit like a very refined, very let's say, yeah, a more skilled house finch with a little bit more richness to its song. Yeah, that last example sounded especially nice, really rounded notes, not quite as choppy as the house finch. Warbling vireo is one of cricket's favorite birds, and it has a really memorable song. I've heard it described as Rosita, Rosita, Rosie, Rosita, Rosita, Rosie, and it usually ends kind of on an upward note. That's why Rosie with an exclamation point. And finally, the last category is complicated. And these songs have little bits and pieces of all the other songs embedded in them. They're very hard to describe, and they're almost impossible to imitate, and they're actually very hard to dance to. So let's take a look at a few examples. One of the most confusing songs, one of the songs I get the most questions about, inevitably turns out to be a Buicks Wren when they play the recording for me and ask, what is this? I hear this in my backyard all the time. So Buicks Wren, like a lot of the other birds, they vary their song a little bit. They grow up learning their song from the birds around them, because these are all Oceans. But they learn various versions, and they have various versions stored in their minds, in their brains. So especially with the wrens, Buicks Wren will change a song pretty regularly. That one was a little bit unfair because I could hear a ruby-crowned kinglet in the background too. I'm sure a lot of you heard it as well. The house wren has got an even more complex song. Listen to this. The song sparrow is often compared to Buicks Wren in its general song structure. If you look at the sonogram, it's almost a reversal. It's almost as if it's sung backwards. That'll be hard to tell here. This recording takes a moment to catch up, but you'll hear the song in a moment. There you go. That's the song. So it actually does resemble the Buicks Wren a little bit, but it's huskier, it's deeper, lower notes, and probably a bit slower too. One of the most complex songs we have locally is Lesser Goldfinch, and just listen to this. It's really kind of an amazing song, and you might have noticed that there are a lot of mimetic phrases in there, songs of other birds that it's incorporating into its own. All the goldfinches, especially lesser goldfinch, and even more Lawrence's goldfinch, are excellent mimics. The reason they're hard to study is because all those mimetic phrases are squished together in such rapid succession, and usually kind of a low volume. It can make it hard to pick them apart. But if you listen carefully to a really skilled lesser goldfinch, you'll hear all kinds of birds, western wood pewee, killdeer. You'll hear grackles imitated. You'll hear any number of birds imitated by the lesser goldfinch. But now it's time for a quiz. I'm going to play 4 bird songs for you, and I'd like you to either enter your answer. It will be one of the birds that I just played for you. Enter your answer into chat. or write it down on a piece of paper. You don't have to, we're not going to put anybody on the spot and ask you to tell us what your score was or anything, but I'd like to hear what people think bird A is.
All right, we've got Robin's coming in the chat. Blue-headed grosbeak.
Okay, let's go on to B. We'll get the answers after these four. This one sounds an awful lot like A, but there's an important difference.
Oh, titmouse, grosbeak.
Okay, great. How about bird C? Anything coming in, Carolyn?
Warbling vireos and a purple finch.
Good, okay. And here's D. Any answers?
A Wilson's warbler, House Wren.
Good.
Another Wilson's warbler.
All right, so I'm going to reveal the answers, and I don't have it set up to play the songs again, unfortunately, but maybe we'll do that in the future. Anyway, bird A was a Western tanager, and if you heard A and B in rapid succession like we did, A was a little bit rougher, and B was a black-headed grosbeak with a little bit smoother song. C was the warbling vireo, and I gather a lot of people got that right, so that's wonderful. And D was Wilson's warbler. So I got excited when I put that quiz together, and I wanted to do another one, but I didn't want to do more letters or more numbers, so I did icons instead. So the first bird is Wi-Fi. So play it now.
Mm-hmm.
Cassin's vireos. Lots of Cassin's vireos.
Lots of Cassin's vireos. Yeah, it sounds like it's talking to itself, doesn't it? One of my favorite songs. Here's Pretzel.
Purple finch.
Excellent. Let's go on to robot. Robot.
House finch, House Wren, Buicks Wren, in an attic.
Sounds like a lot of wrens. And telescope.
Sorry, we had a mistype. The house finch was intended to be a house wren.
I kind of figured. Here's telescope.
Buicks Oriole.
Luxorial. Okay, so let's go through. Wi-Fi was Cassin's Vireo. I think a lot of people got that right. Pretzel was Purple Finch. Robot was House Wren, and Telescope was Buicks Oriole.
Yay.
So I'd kind of love to know out of those 8 species, how many people got. But in the meantime, I'd like to just congratulate you all for enduring that, because it's not easy, and it definitely doesn't come naturally. This is something we really have to work on. And with that in mind, I'd like to inform you about a really wonderful website called larkwire.com, where they produce an app for your mobile phone, but they've got demonstrations on the website, and it's a sort of a gamified song learning application, and it's wonderful. And it's available on iTunes. It's a free application, so I'm not making any money by recommending it. You can purchase separate libraries of bird songs to practice with once you get into the app, but it's pretty wonderful. And here are a few panels from my cell phone. You can see I've got eBird and Birdwatcher and Bird's Eye and Sibley and Merlin and Larkwire, Warbler and iNaturalist and Raptor ID, all of them there on 2 panels. Larkwire is on the first panel because they use it all the time. And you can select the kinds of birds you would like to study, and you can even narrow it down. You could say, I want to study just warblers, or I'd like to study all the blackbirds, or I'd like to study whistling songs. And on the third panel, it shows you what it looks like. You see 4 bird images, and you can play those to get a sort of practice listen to them. And then when you decide to press the play button, it will send back new versions of those birds' songs. And you've got to select by touching the bird you think it is. So after you've had a chance to study and listen over and over again, you can test yourself. And when you're done with this, you'll move on to the next panel, and it might be harder or it might be the same level. But my guarantee to you is that you'll learn those songs really well. And I love it. I listen to bird songs and practice all the time. And one last thing I wanted to point out, because I mentioned the Eastern Phoebe earlier, I felt it was time to point out that the new SCVAS 2021 t-shirt will be available very soon. And it's all of the flycatchers that have been reported in Santa Clara County plus 1. So there's 1 bird there in that collection that has not been reported in the county. And I put it there just because I'm optimistic that one of us will find it. But in the upper left, you see Vermilion flycatcher. And on the 4th from the left, you see the Eastern Phoebe, and even scissortail flycatchers on there, and thick-billed kingbird, which doesn't end up on eBird because Bill Bousman discovered it, and he wasn't using eBird to make a checklist. But we've got 5 or 6 Impidinaxes here, and it's a pretty wonderful collection of flycatchers that we've got. Anyway, just wanted to thank you all for that, and I'm going to stop my sharing and see if anybody has any questions, quick questions before we sign off, because we've gone a little bit over time.
Might be good to repeat the question because there's so much in the chat. I'm not going to find the old questions.
I'll pick a couple and we'll get to those, and I'll answer others, or we can answer others later on after we have a chance to sort through them all.
How do you collect sufficient owl pellets for a whole classroom, Carolyn?
Oh, so we actually purchase them. That way they come sterilized. We would have access to lots of owl pellets, but I've got to be honest, they're kind of gross. They've been out in the weather for a while, so we actually purchase pre-sterilized ones, so we don't have to worry about the sorts of leavings that are found in a barn that's also open to rats and mice and such.
How do we set up a new Birdathon team?
Yeah, that's a great question. There is actually a button at the top of the Birdathon's team. You click that. It's big and orange, and it will ask you for all of the pertinent information. It's mostly things like your name, your email, what time are you planning on going out, and for a team description. And from there, we can post your team, and it will be publicly available for fundraising and for people to request to join. We've tried really hard to make the forms as accessible as possible, so they're all really well labeled on our website.
Right. All right, I think that's most of the questions. Scrolling back through.
Okay.
Anybody else
Well,
have any last minute questions?
If anybody has any questions whatsoever for any of us, any three of us, go ahead and send them to us. We're all very available to answer questions. Carolyn, do you have any closing comments for tonight before we sign off?
I'd really like to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Usually our kickoff dinners are super, super tiny, which has been great on the years where we decide to do friendly birding competitions where it's literally everyone else versus Mike Mimoser or Mike Rogers. But it is really great to see you all. Thank you so much for your interest. I really hope to see you guys taking part in Birdathon. However you choose to do that, we try and have as much fun as possible with this event. And I'm just going to end up saying thank you again. So I'm going to close it here.
Hey, Barry.
Quick question, Matthew. Are we going to make this recording available for people that either missed it or missed parts of it?
Oh, absolutely. I'm recording it.
Excellent.
We can make the whole thing available.
So we'll put that up on the website and up on our YouTube channel.
Yeah.
I also want to say thank you. Thank you, everybody, for coming tonight. Thank you for supporting Santa Clara Valley Audubon Society. And have fun and stay safe.
Marianne,
can I poke in one thing?
Yeah, I think Marianne's also got a
Can I say one
question.
thing? Based upon interest from folks in the chat, I'm starting a lawn ornament birding. We've all been walking in our neighborhoods. We know where all the pink flamingos are. We can't post this to eBird, but I consider this the best second alternative to Diane's idea of going into a museum and counting all the birds that you can find in the paintings.
Yeah.
So we all go out for an exercise walk in a distributed way in our own neighborhoods. And I'm leading it. I'm setting up one in the Birdathon page. So anybody who wants to sign up for a go look for pink flamingos and ceramic geese and that one decoy that's out in Alviso Slough, the State and Spreckles, that one.
Yep.
I accidentally counted it once in a Birdathon. So let's do this. Let's do the completely crazy one.
I forgot about Diane's team. That's marvelous. Yeah, let's do that one.
Do giant steel sculptures count?
To
I don't see
what?
why not.
Yes.
So yes.
Got a lot of
Anything
those.
that represents a bird and is man-made, it counts.
Well, you could get a lot of if you go to
That's what I say.
city sculptures and architecture. I'm sure you could find some birds.
It's silly.
Up along.
I'll just go down to my gate.
But anyway, I wanted to thank you all also for showing up tonight. I know it'd be nicer if we could all be together in a real place and have real refreshments together, but this is pretty nice too. And I really appreciate you all showing up. The most important thing, as I said before, is to have fun, stay safe. There's so much at stake with our educational program, so much good stuff that's funded by the funds that we raise. So I really encourage you to talk to your coworkers, talk to your friends and family, and see if they'd like to sponsor you, sponsor your team. See if they'd like to join your team. Get as many people involved as possible, because this is really all about fun, and it's about telling people, showing people how exciting and how interesting birds are. And the more people we get involved, the better for us all. So with that, I just want to sign off and tell everybody thank you for showing up. This has been marvelous. And I look forward to seeing you in the field You'll recognize me. I'm pretty much always wearing shorts and a baseball hat and a backpack. Anyway, good night, everybody. We'll see you all soon.
Thanks.